Hello and welcome everyone to the SERO SNAP-Ed Best Practices webinar. Today we will be discussing Farm to School. Next slide, please. I'm Amy Delisio from the Center for Wellness and Nutrition, and as you know, we partner with the Southeast Regional Office SNAP-Ed to bring you these webinars to hopefully help you look at new implementation strategies for your SNAP-Ed programs as well as working with partners. Next slide, please. I'll just give you a brief overview of what we'll be covering today. We have a great lineup of speakers that are going to be sharing some great strategies that you all may be able to use in some of your local programming. First, we'll hear from the USDA Food and Nutrition Services to provide some broad overview of farm to school and opportunities within from USDA. Our first guest presenter is going to be from the National Farm to School Network, who will also share some success stories and opportunities for you to use some of their resources with your programming. And then we have two presenters from the region that will share some of their farm to school work that they are currently working on, and that will include the University of Florida, the Poe Center for Health Education out of North Carolina. We will have time for questions and answers. And closing comments and adjourn. As questions come up, feel free to chat those into the Q&A box. We will hold questions till the end, but if time is running short, we may ask presenters to go ahead and respond within the Q&A box, particularly if they are some easy questions, straightforward to answer. We can go ahead and put those in the box. If it's something more extensive, we'll probably save that for a verbal response. Next slide, please. Great. And our first speakers, as mentioned, come from USDA. We'll be hearing from Jennifer Joy Nolan and Brittany Souvenir. And Jennifer Joy Nolan is the Farm to School Regional Lead, and she joined FNS in 2017. She previously served as a Schools and Nutrition Branch Senior Program Specialist within the Southeast Regional Office School Nutrition Programs Branch, and Joy was recently selected to be the Farm to School Regional Lead. And then Brittany Souvenir, who is your Regional SNAP-Ed Coordinator, joined FNS in 2010. She previously served as a Schools and Nutrition Branch Program Specialist within SERO. And in 2016, Brittany was selected to be the Regional Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program Education Coordinator. So we'll turn it over to Joy and Brittany to give you some information from the regional office.
Hi there, everybody. Thanks for having me. Every year, the United States Department of Agriculture awards grants to help connect students to the sources of their food through education, taste tests, school gardens, field trips, and local food sourcing for school meals. Eligible entities, grantees, include schools and districts large and small, rural and urban, public, private, and charter. Indian tribal organizations, agricultural producers, or groups of agricultural producers, nonprofit entities, and state and local agencies. There are three different types of grants: planning grants, implementation grants, and training grants. Grants range from $20,000 up to $100,000 for grant periods for 12 to 24 months in length. Applicants are required to provide matching support of at least 25% of the total project budget in the form of cash or in-kind contributions. In-kind contributions can include volunteer, staff, non-federal grants, and other existing sources such as classrooms and tools. You can visit the Office of Community Food Systems webpage for additional information or reach out to the Regional Farm to School Lead to start building community partnerships and applying for a Farm to School grant today. There's also additional resources available that may support community investments. You could check with your regional office contacts, and they can help guide you to resources for team nutrition grants and connect you with state agency partners to discuss the use of SAE funds to support community investments. Next slide.
and good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending on where you are. I'm Brittany Souvenir, as Amy mentioned, and so I wanted to share a little bit with you about SNAP-Ed and Farm 2 and some of our regional initiatives. So as stated in our SNAP-Ed guidance, FNS expects states to coordinate SNAP-Ed activities with other national, state, and local nutrition education, obesity prevention, and health promotion initiatives. This includes Farm 2. So when we say Farm 2, we mean farm to school, farm to child care centers, and community environments, etc. States must consult and coordinate with state and local operators of other FNS programs to ensure SNAP-Ed complements the nutrition education and obesity prevention activities of those programs. I'm sure most or all of you are aware of the allowable activities and costs SNAP-Ed agencies can utilize for Farm 2 activities, such as implementing nutrition education, purchasing seeds, plants, small gardening tools and supplies, purchasing and providing educational supplies, curricula, and staff salaries to teach food gardening concepts. Staff salaries can also be used to establish and maintain community gardens, such as in low-income housing projects or schools may be allowable, but should be submitted to FNS for prior approval. So during a call in spring 2020 with SERO state agency coordinators, we've asked them to relay this message to implementing agencies, and now we are asking SERO agencies on today's call to describe any Farm 2 activities in a common location using a similar language in the SNAP-Ed plans. The intent being to create more consistency in the way Farm 2 activities are described in SNAP-Ed plans. Having consistency with the plan location and language would allow us to better locate and assess SNAP-Ed Farm 2 activities and outcomes. If not already done in the FY 2021 plan, please include any FY 2022 Farm 2 activities your agency plans to conduct in Template 2 under Coordination Efforts for your FY 2022 plan. The secondary preferred location would be where you write your descriptions of direct education and or PSC activities. The main point is to label the descriptions Farm 2 so we can easily access the information. On the next slide, we have a few examples of the brief descriptions and information we're looking to see. Next slide. So here are some examples that we have for you. And of course, you can come up with your own descriptions. I know some of you write very detailed information, so that is exactly what we're looking for. But yes, so these are some of the examples that we have, and you can make your own descriptions more detailed, which is encouraged. But these examples hit on the minimum information we hope to capture on planned Farm 2 activities. Knowing not all SERO SNAP-Ed agencies may be represented on today's call, we'll send out a reminder of this ask well before FY 2022 planning period. So thanks for your assistance with this, and should you have any questions, please reach out to me, Brittany Souvenir. And lastly, we want to say thank you to those who work on and partner with Farm 2 activities. Thanks for doing your part to connect families to local foods and agriculture. So now, without further ado, we will turn today's presentation over to our guest speakers, and Amy will give the introduction. Amy?
Great. Thank you, Brittany and Joy, for just sharing that background on how USDA can support you with your farm to school work. Our next guest speaker, or our first guest speaker, I should say, comes from the National Farm to School Network. Elena Pisano serves as a program manager with the National Farm to School Network. Her work is focused on supporting producers seeking to build farm to school relationships and partnering with Native communities seeking to expand and sustain farm to school activities as a strategy for advancing food sovereignty. Elena is a mother and an experienced practitioner of farm to school who is dedicated to development of just and local food systems serving our youth, families, and communities now and for future generations. Thank you so much for joining us today, Elena, and I will turn it over to you for your presentation.
Thank you, Amy, and thanks everybody on this panel for having me join. I'm really excited to hear more about some of the local examples, but I do want to take a moment just to share some big picture concepts about Farm to School and highlight some of the new resources that we've been creating at the National Farm to School Network to support you guys on the ground. Next slide, please. Great. So I do not think that I need to tell you all what Farm to School is, because I know you all know, but I'm just going to do this quick reminder because we really like to emphasize that the three core elements of Farm to School, procurement of local foods in the school cafeteria, education through school gardens, and food and agriculture and nutrition education as the three core elements. And we like to really emphasize that Farm to School operates best and has the most potential to create meaningful impact when we're working through all three of these elements or strategies at the same time. Something that I really appreciate about the SNAP Ed program is that it fits in nicely to this framework. And so, again, we really want to encourage folks to think about integrating these components as much as possible in your local programming. Next slide, please. Thank you. So again, why Farm to School? I know I'm preaching to the choir, but in case you don't know or you need a great talking point, we like to say it's because Farm to School really is a triple win. And what we mean by that is that kids win by participating in Farm to School, often are able to eat more fresh fruits and vegetables and make connections to their local farm economy and farmers. Farmers win by shortening supply chains and really supporting more localized and robust food systems, which can help farmers keep a bigger share of the dollar and keep that local economy circling and strengthening. And communities win, not only through the ways that we just articulated, but also with this idea of broader local economic investment and knowing that kids really are the change agents in our community. I have a daughter, and I know that, right, like what she brings home becomes a priority in our family, and that has a ripple effect out into the community. So again, that triple bottom line of Farm to School is why we're so passionate about seeing Farm to School as a strategy for really improving communities, supporting children and farmers. Next slide, please. So we've talked a little bit about the triple win. I just want to dig in a little bit more into some of the research that's been done around Farm to School and name some of these tangible examples. So we know that there's some public health impacts and benefits for student nutrition behaviors, and that increasing healthy food intake and physical activity is really important for our youth. And SNAP Ed programs provide much needed capacity to school partners that are trying to do this work, as you all know, since you're playing that important bridging role. This also impacts knowledge, attitudes, and access to local foods, not only for the kids that are participating in these programs, but for the families as well. The other piece would be around economic development, which I touched on, but just to say, right, there's these long-term effects as well as short-term effects of really supporting local farmers, and it can ripple out into greater job creation and increased viability of local farms as businesses. The educational gains, we see a lot of improvement around student engagement and academic achievement. Also this idea of being able to really engage parents and families more in the school environment, and we think that Farm to School is a really fun and great way to bring the community into the school. And then in the broader environment of our communities, there is data that points to reduced food waste in cafeterias, and that we see that this can help to drive an increase for connecting more sustainable practices into the food systems that serve our schools. The components that really relate to school environment that I also would emphasize is just a healthier school environment, bolstering those school wellness policies, and really providing support to the child nutrition program operators. Next slide, please. So I hope you all are familiar with our network, but as Amy mentioned, I am staff with the National Farm to School Network, and we're a hub for communities working to bring those three core elements of Farm to School into schools and early child care education settings, and also all of that around this bigger goal of supporting community food systems. Our organization is built on a network model, so we have national staff, including myself. We have an advisory board that comes from all around the country that are active Farm to School practitioners, and they help us to really hone in on innovations and promising practices. We have core and supporting partners in every state, DC, and several territories. And I will just throw this out there as a poll if folks want to answer in the chat if you have a relationship to NFSN, if you're a core partner or if you're a supporting partner on this call. And if not, I would encourage you to visit our webpage. I'll talk about that in a little bit, but it's free to become a member and you can access all these great resources that we produce. We have over 20,000 members around the country and really want to help grow farm to school by growing our membership. Next slide, please. So I'm not going to read out loud the mission and vision of National Farm to School Network, except to say that, again, we are equally invested in advancing farm to school, really proposing those 3 core elements and seeing that those activities expand into all communities. And our goal of that is really to achieve this triple win on behalf of our communities. And so the goals that we have that drive our mission are really related to helping keep local solutions, promising solutions, and be able to resource practitioners on the ground. Next slide, please. And I really, just to be totally honest, I really love working for an organization that has a really clear set of core values. And these core values help us to maintain our focus on the mission and help us to ensure we're approaching our work in a way that's really centered in collaboration, cooperation, and communication, and that we are really trying to make our initiatives serve the broader movement, including all of you here today, and bridge across sectors and programming so that we can have a unified voice for farm to school at the community level. Next slide, please. So in case you're new to farm to school or you just need a little refresher about what it is that we do on the day-to-day, we have a few core functions and they're highlighted in this graphic. We are a hub, as I said earlier, a nationwide hub for farm to school, and we really focus in on providing information, providing opportunities for networking, and acting as capacity support for advocacy initiatives to help sustain and expand farm to school. So in other words, we connect people to resources, people to people, and people to policy in order to expand and institutionalize farm to school, both in school communities and ECE environments. Next slide, please. These are a few of our core program areas that we've evolved to really focus in on. So my role at National Farm to School Network is really targeted at supporting producers and also Native communities, and we realize that there's unique opportunities and unique impacts that come out of different communities looking at farm to school. We really believe that homegrown solutions work best and that farm to school looks different in every community. However, these program areas sort of represent what we would say are promising practices to uplift or areas that we're investing extra energy and capacity into to help strengthen the movement. State capacity building has been a really large focus for us over recent years, and I feel like that's one of the reasons that we're able to partner across sectors and with different programs like SNAP Ed. Next slide, please. So now I'm excited to get to sort of the reality, the how's it going, and really acknowledge, right, that we're in this time of a lot of change and challenge for many communities. And so we're asking ourselves, how do we grow farm to school so that more children, farmers, and communities can benefit? And how do we do it in a way that is appropriate for community capacity while inspiring innovative approaches and planting some seeds of opportunity for next steps? So I'm gonna share some of these promising practices that we've seen emerge in this time of the COVID-19 pandemic, focus on the 3 core areas, and then I'll dig into some details about the resources that we have been working to create and provide to you. Next slide, please. Great, so I'm going to start here with procurement. So core element, procurement, or getting that local food into the cafeteria or into the meal program or the grab and go bag or basically into the student, right? So there's a couple great examples that I want to highlight. We know that every community during this time is really trying to find out what works best for getting meals to students and families while supporting local producers. And again, navigating all of this in a time in which our food system is looking differently and our food system workers are being impacted. So a few really great examples I'll just touch on and encourage you all to visit our website for more information into all the examples that I highlight for the rest of the webinar, and that information will be at the end of my presentation. So in Alabama, an organization, and this is your neck of the woods, so possibly we have someone on the call, but we really wanted to feature the work that's been happening by the Farm Food Collaborative, and that they've been working with schools to try to get local strawberries incorporated into those grab-and-go meals in districts, realizing that this is a food that has been, was in season and is such a bounty of the region, and wouldn't want to miss that opportunity for students, as strawberries are a favorite. So we think that's pretty impressive that something as perishable and challenging is making it into those grab-and-go meals. The Common Market is an organization that works in multiple states and communities, including Georgia in the Southeast region, as well as New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Texas. And the Common Market has been busy partnering with farmers and school districts and organizations to provide local food from within their producer networks, which are small, diverse, and often urban ag projects, to serve in those grab-and-go feeding offerings to children and youth, as well as seniors, families, and communities. So they're really working to bridge those supply chain gaps and get quality food on the table, and as a common model, but operating in different communities. And there's a great picture here that features the Common Market team in the Southeast. And then in West Virginia, the West Virginia Department of Education's Office of Child Nutrition has been working with local producers to provide apples and pears to over 505 community feeding sites within 55 counties. And we think that's incredibly impressive, especially, again, in a time where those food system and supply chains are being interrupted in ways, and people are having to do creative things like drive the products around in their own time. Or Common Market, they were partnering with taxi cab companies in New York City to move food. So there's some great innovations that have come out. These are all featured on our website in a number of different blogs and resources. So I hope that one thing you noticed about all of these approaches is that they're really about collaboration, working across programs, across schools and communities, and trying to expand how we think of local procurement and that the steps that it takes to get those local foods onto the tray. Next slide, please. Experiential education, so ag education. And I think what's so impressive is how many of our communities are really embracing this virtual world that we're in, and providing opportunities for students to continue their experiential education at home, whether that means school gardens or online learning programs, Harvest of the Month programs. So in Maryland, the Great Kids Farm, who partners with Baltimore City Schools, has been busy in a number of ways, and they're featured here in the two photos of farmers and farm videos. So first, they've been working to distribute windowsill garden activity kits to summer programs serving students. So really trying to get that activity back at home, which again will have an impact on the family and community as well. They've also launched a couple initiatives to provide the children that opportunity to connect with the farm that they are accustomed to, and to keep the alignment with the curriculum. Their program is really holistic and well integrated. And so they created this FaceTime with the Farmer, which are virtual farm tours that align with the curriculum points that students are doing. They also have a YouTube series called What's Growing on the Farm. And it's literally what's growing on the farm, and it matches up with some of the products that are being served, as well as some of the varieties of plants that are included in the windowsill garden. So there's a video here on peppers and tomatoes. That was also a big part of those garden activity kits. So really trying to bridge the gaps of not having FaceTime with students, and using these really creative ways to recreate that experience. In Montana, teachers are really being encouraged to use the state-sponsored Harvest of the Month videos, which are also available on YouTube. And they're really trying to supplement that at-home gardening and agriculture lessons, right? Make sure that even if you're not able to garden at home, you have those times to connect that food back to source. In Oregon, there's been a few different innovative things. So the Oregon Harvest for Schools program, which is a Harvest of the Month program, has a series of videos available on their website that showcase Oregon-grown items. from the farm to cafeteria tray. These videos are in English and Spanish, and they've just released one on eggs and winter squash. So they're a great resource to check out. We also know through our COVID Relief Fund, which I'll discuss in a little bit, that there's one school in Oregon that has set up a webcam in the school's chicken coop and by the beehives that broadcast live on the school website so that teachers can lead lessons that are live and that are virtual, and so that students can keep their responsibility in the school garden. And I think that's a really great approach. Next slide, please. Great, so then this piece about school gardens. So school gardens at home is what we're calling this. So our partners at NFSN have been really busy trying to ensure that gardening and education continues while students are at home. And there's been some great strategies that we've seen come out specifically around this gardening piece. So I mentioned just a little bit ago the program that is operating in Maryland with those windowsill garden kits. You'll see a photo here of that. Again, they distributed over 3,000 of those kits to students in the summer feeding programs. We also understand that many states, Ohio, North Carolina, you're on here, I'm sure we'll hear more about it, Vermont, West Virginia, and Wisconsin have been sending donated seed packets and grow kits in coordination with those feeding programs, again, at community and school sites. A little plug for SNAP Ed. We've heard great things about what's going on in West Virginia, where SNAP Ed educators are dropping off grow kits with food service staff. They're packing them right into the lunches, and they're mailing seed packets to families. That level of community connection is just something to be celebrated, and why, again, I'm really honored to be here on this call. Next slide, please. So I touched on this earlier, and this slide, I'm sorry, there's a lot of text, but I just wanted to share that we at National Farm to School Network established a COVID Relief Fund in the spring, and the fund has had 2 rounds of mini grants, and these are all the organizations from across the country that received a $5,000 mini grant as a result of our COVID Relief Fund. These organizations span from tribal governments seeking to really advance food sovereignty, to school-based farm programs trying to do innovative things like those YouTube videos, and even then further to look at more ECE environments and ways of trying to connect local farmers more broadly into our food systems. And there's a number of projects focused on that. One thing you might notice looking at these lists is there's quite a focus on urban projects that are serving Black communities, as well as more rural projects serving Native communities. And in our second round of funding, we decided to really try to support those audiences in particular and stakeholders, understanding that this pandemic has had disproportionate impacts in some of our communities, and that we were able to help resource to address those challenges, and also to be able to support these really great innovations coming from those communities. So if you want to check out more about these organizations and projects, you can visit our website. We can also connect you to any of these projects that might be in your state or region if you're interested in building relationships. Next slide, please. So I've been promising, we want to encourage you to visit our webpage. So here is where you can go to get straight to our COVID resources, farmschool.org/COVID-19. We have 2 live opportunities for you right now. First of all, we have a survey that we're using, not just with our partners, but with all of our members. We would like to learn, what do you need on the ground to do your work better as we look towards entering a new school year? And we're trying to negotiate what it looks like to do farm to school during an ongoing public health crisis. So it's a quick survey, but we sure would appreciate your support so that we can be able to target our energy and resources to help you work better. We also have a weekly e-newsletter specifically focused on COVID-19 and community response and innovations. There's a bunch of resources. There's policy advocacy asks embedded in there. There's grant opportunities and funding opportunities. It's a really great resource. And so you can sign up on our website and have that information delivered to you, as well as our regular newsletter, which is a monthly newsletter, and it's full of those types of resources, all the time. They are not pandemic focused, obviously, but again, a really great place to go if you're looking for inspiration or capacity support. Next slide, please. And so now my favorite thing that I get to share with all of you is a whole bunch of new resources. Our staff has been really busy trying to keep a pulse and keep relationships on the ground and support all of you. And so we've created a number of different fact sheets and sort of information sheets, and those are listed here on the right-hand side, including policy pieces as well as education models, links to curriculum, procurement platforms for farmers and producers that are being used by organizations that we partner with, such as the Common Market and California Alliance of Family Farms. So there's a lot to dig into around information. And then we've also launched a storytelling initiative and really tried to make that more robust so that we provide a platform for our local community partners to tell their story from their own voice with their own images. And there's a number of different ways that we've done this. So there's written stories on this page. There's also podcasts and videos you can dig into. One thing I want to highlight is our new blog series. It's highlighted here in a red color called New Ways to Farm to School. And it's a 5-day blog series. We're in day 3. And it really focuses on that farm to and broadening what it looks like. So right now, it's not just farm to school, it's farm to food bank to school, it's farm to community center to school, and we know that. And so this blog features some of those promising practices that we feel are going to transform the way that we look at farm to school on the ground and expand opportunities for students and communities. Again, they're great reads, they're launching every day, and so you can just check our website daily, or you can wait till the end of the week and see all 5 of them. A number of the models that I shared with you are also drawn from some of these blogs, so particularly around the Resilient Community Food System blog, there's a lot of great examples as well as contacts you can reach out to in your community. Next slide, please. All right, so I just want to again say thank you so much for having me on this call, and I'm really excited to learn more from the other presenters on the call about what's happening at the community level, and encourage and invite all of you to reach out at any point if you're looking for more resources or you want to build relationships in your community through our network. We're here to serve you. So thank you very much.
Great. Thank you so much, Elena, for that, sharing those great resources and opportunities for our network to reach out to you. Our next presenters come from the University of Florida, IFAS Extension, and the Family Nutrition Program. So I'll give you some background on them. Jeannie Necessary works with the University of Florida Extension Family Nutrition Program as the State Food System Coordinator. She holds a bachelor's degree in Communication and Political Science from the University of Miami, and she has 10+ years of experience with childhood nutrition programs focused on gardening, cooking, and food insecurity. Kelly Brew is the Farm to School Coordinator, and she has been working to connect the local food system with those in need for more than 25 years through her work with local nonprofits, including Florida Organic Growers and the Greenhouse Catholic Worker. For the past 6 years, she's been a leader in developing a farm-to-school hub for Alachua County schools that has increased local food in the lunchroom by over 500%, while educating students at all levels about local agricultural and good nutrition. A unique part of the hub includes providing job and life skills to teenagers and young adults with disabilities. Kelly says that helping make the connection between a healthy local food system and healthy community is both a passion and a really great job. So I want to welcome both Jeannie and Kelly, and we look forward to hearing more about your programs. I'll turn it over to you now.
Great, thank you so much for that introduction. Again, my name is Jeannie Necessary. I'm the State Food Systems Coordinator with the University of Florida IFAS Extension Family Nutrition Program. And Kelly will be coming up a little bit later to talk about the Food Hub in Alachua County. She is a great partner in our work here in the state of Florida. If you could go to the next slide, please. So I just wanted to have a little bit of an agenda today. We're just going to talk a little bit about farm to school in the state of Florida and an introduction to the family nutrition program. And then we'll go into some best practices and successes that we've had here in the state of Florida. And then I'll turn it over to Kelly to talk more about the Alachua County Food Hub. Next slide, please. And you can go to the next slide. So the University of Florida IFAS Extension Family Nutrition Program is one of two implementing agencies, SNAP-Ed implementing agencies in the state of Florida, along with the Florida Department of Health. You can see our missions to help limited resource families in Florida access more nutritious food choices on a budget and adopt healthier eating and physical activity habits. We have been an implementing agency in the state of Florida for 25 years, and we are also a supporting partner of the National Farm to School Network with the Florida Department of Agriculture. Next slide, please. So Farm to School, as defined by SNAP-Ed, is PSE change and direct education intervention designed to improve access to local foods in pre-K to 12. Farm to School empowers children and their families to make informed food choices while strengthening the local economy and contributing to vibrant communities. Each Farm to School program, as you all are very much aware of, is unique, but it often combines elements of local procurement or serving food from local producers in meals and snack alongside food, nutrition, and agriculture education in the classroom and beyond, such as cafeteria and school garden. Next slide, please. So one of the components of SNAP-Ed, as you all know, is the policy systems and environmental change component. It's one of the three approaches to SNAP-Ed in addition to direct education. We work with the PSE interventions in the state, and I'll get to that in the next slide, with our public health and food systems team. And of course, the PSE supports for Farm to School are those that make farm to school practices the norms in classrooms and cafeteria throughout the year, from early care through high school. Some of the system change example would be including hiring a farm to school or garden staff, partnering with distributors to carry and label local product, creating a grant program to fund school gardens, and building local or statewide farm to school coalitions. And an example of an environmental change would be a farm to school environmental support, not limited to local foods, promotional and marketing materials, school gardens, farms, and food system courses and classes. Next slide, please. So here is our wonderful team. We are comprised of two teams, as I mentioned. We have a public health side and we have a food system side, and they are regional specialists that form these two complementary teams and work across the state of Florida and the 40 counties in which we operate. They operate at a county level, and most specialists typically are working in multiple counties at one time. Next slide, please. And what we do in these counties is we work in building capacity, internally and externally, developing tools and trainings, of course, building partnerships, and identifying, planning, and implementing multi-level PSE interventions. We affectionately call our two teams together the PSE unit, which focuses on the higher levels of the socio-ecological model and work closely with our program assistants and county supervisors in the identified areas of opportunity for PSE work. The support they provide supports better food access and making the healthy choice the easy choice. We work with a variety of community and state partners to accomplish policies and systems change. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to highlight some of the work that we have accomplished in 2019. The next section of the presentation will be about some of our successes and best practices. Next slide, please. So as you can see, in 2019, the Family Nutrition Program impacted 1.1 million people through our PSE work. We supported 227 gardens in the state of Florida, and also worked to implement 428 policy systems and environmental changes throughout the state. The way that we do this includes our trainings, which include garden education trainings, early childhood education. We work with closely with the partner here in the state of Florida with the Moores to provide the Healthy Kids, Healthy Futures training, Smarter Lunchrooms movement, and we also provide Healthy Pantries training. Next slide, please. And just to break it down a little bit more, the food systems work that we really focus on, you can see on this slide everywhere from attending coalitions and committees to hear what the community is looking to change within their community. And I've highlighted here our school garden leadership training and our garden support. Next slide, please. So the farm to school gardens piece, we've created, as I mentioned, the school garden leadership training to support school garden champions to really focus on two areas: to foster a school garden leadership network and to increase the adoption of school garden best practices. We've reviewed creation of the school garden team, planting, composting, and harvesting best practices and techniques, all through this training. And to adapt to the changing time that we are in with COVID, typically we would provide these trainings regionally in person, but we are actually able to provide these virtually to the entire state of Florida, and partnering with the Florida Ag in the Classroom program to offer these trainings to garden champions virtually throughout the state. And traditionally as well, included in these trainings, we invite and partner with different organizations and extension agents to provide best practice in each of these areas. Next slide, please. Another area of opportunity in which we work within is procurement, and we do this by, we developed an initiative and toolkit called the Florida Crunch. Next slide, please. It's a one-day event organized by the schools across the state with the intent to celebrate National Farm to School Month in October. It is inspired by the Great Apple Crunch in the northern states and was adapted for the state of Florida to highlight locally grown produce. We're proud to say that we've had over 20 crunch events across the state, with even more happening in schools who have taken the initiative to download the Crunch Toolkit to integrate the event and celebrate Farm to School Month into their schools. Next slide, please. So why do we crunch? We crunch to raise awareness of Florida-grown produce and healthy eating by highlighting one fruit or vegetable for students, to learn about and sample the produce in a taste test, and to encourage schools to serve more Florida-grown produce in the cafeteria throughout the year. Next slide, please. So the Florida Crunch Toolkit is available online for download on our website. And it was created in collaboration with the Florida Department of Agriculture, Chef Paula Kendrick. And it's a guide for event planning for the day and resources for the Crunch Day. At the moment, we are also in the process of adapting the Florida Crunch event for a virtual celebration of National Farm to School Month in October. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned before, one of the areas that we work within with our food systems specialists is procurement. And I wanted to highlight one of the great successes that we've had over the years with procurement with Orange County Public Schools. Next slide, please. So in Orange County Public Schools, most of you may be familiar with Orange County because there's a mouse that lives there in Orlando. And our regional food systems specialists worked with the Orange County Public Schools over a 3-year time period to implement a monthly harvest of the month program. And in FY20, fiscal year 20, so this year, They committed to purchasing and marketing one Florida item on the menu every month during the year. F&P provides F&P is the Family Nutrition Program, provides direct education at over 15 schools in the district, including classroom and after school, and supports 12 school gardens. So this partnership has been very important and is one of the areas that I'm the proudest of as our team. And that is all from me. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and I'm going to turn it over to our wonderful partner, Kelly Brew, to talk a little bit about the Alachua County Public School Farm to School Hub.
Okay, thanks, Jeannie. We can move, thank you. I'm Kelly Brew. I'm the Farm to School Coordinator for Alachua County Public Schools, and I'm going to flesh out the Farm to School Hub and how our collaboration with the Family Nutrition Program has worked for our school system and for the greater community. The next slide. Several entities make up the Farm to School Hub, and we work so well together and have such an overlap in those we serve that we found it helpful to come up with a little tagline for presentations and even introductions so people can better understand our collaboration. And just real quickly, this place is a collaboration between two school departments, Food and Nutrition Services and the Exceptional Student Education Department's Transition Program in partnership with the University of Florida's Family Nutrition Program. You can see why it's easier to write that out than to say it. We like to add the tagline as well that at the Farm to School Hub, students and the community can experience a healthy local food system from seed to lunchroom tray. Next slide. This is a quick timeline of how we got started and how important these collaborations were to us. In 2014, the Alachua County Public School Student Nutrition Department was awarded the USDA Farm to School Planning Grant, and we started immediately our partnership with the Exceptional Student Education Department. The next year, we began our partnership with the University of Florida's Family Nutrition Program. And then between 2016 and 2018, we were the very fortunate recipients of several other USDA grants, including equipment grants and then the Farm to School Implementation Grant, as well as grants and awards from the Florida Department of Agriculture. Next slide. Our program goals. Our first goal is in common with every single Farm to School program in the United States to serve more locally grown food in school meals. Our particular program was interested in exploring ways to purchase directly from local farms and also in growing our own food for school meals. The other two goals support the first and really motivated us towards collaboration: to boost student acceptance of local produce so we don't become a farm to trash can program, and to do that through nutrition education and through offering students the experience of seeing food grow in school gardens and on field trips to local farms. And then finally, sustainability, or how to keep going after the grants end. For us, embedding ourselves deeply into the school curriculum was the primary way of doing this. Next slide. The great startup funding and the support from the organizations that gave us this funding contributed to a huge amount of growth over the first couple years, allowing us to grow an acre of fresh fruit and vegetables at the Farm to School Hub. Next slide. In addition to that vegetable production, the Farm to School Hub is now a campus for the Growing Education Training Program. It's an outdoor classroom, a teaching garden, a field trip destination, and the site of our food hub. Next slide. I'll tell you a little bit about each of these components, starting with the GET program, or the Growing Education Training Program. It's part of a larger transition program for students with disabilities. Students in this program are able to stay in the school system until they're 22, giving them time to develop more skills for their adult life. The GET program itself started about a year before the first Farm to School grant was awarded. They were at the time growing kale on a grow tower for a cafe in town for smoothies, and they wanted to expand. And their teacher contacted me the very first month I was on the job to ask if they were able to expand and renovate a greenhouse, would we possibly be able to buy produce from them for our burgeoning Farm to School program. And we were so excited to hear that these renovation plans included being able to grow 150 heads of lettuce a week hydroponically, as well as up to between 50 and 70 pounds of cucumbers during the growing season, which in Florida, we're lucky, it coincides pretty closely with the normal school year. So the answer was yes, we would love to help them do that, and we connected them with University of Florida hydroponics experts, and the result was that we're able to purchase this produce from them, supporting their program and getting us some top-notch produce for school meals, like Persian cucumbers and that tender hydroponic lettuce you see growing there. Next slide. I'm going to add a few more photos here to better show the scope of what the GAT students add to our program and also receive. The training that they receive at the Hub has become an important part of their overall transition training. Some will be able to work independently after leaving the program, while others are here primarily to boost their home living skills and offer opportunities for further socialization. Many of them are able to receive Safe Staff cards, and we have a couple working on ServSafe certification. They receive basic job training in the process of processing and packaging food we're receiving from local farms, and they get a lot of great social training and food production experience in the garden and kitchen with staff and volunteers, many which come from the University of Florida. Next slide. The Farm to School Hub School Garden Training Program is also really important, especially because we have 15 school gardens, or did as of yesterday, that are spread around our county, and we have a pretty good sized county. So this is a place where they can gather together and learn everything they need to know to grow vegetables for the lunchroom and also for student taste tests. The GAT students grow the transplants for the school gardens and build their raised bed. And each year, teachers are here to see examples of the crops they'll be growing, to learn the basics of gardening, the process for growing for the lunchroom successfully and safely, and to learn ways to connect their garden to classroom teaching. Next slide. We all look forward to weekly field trips. We usually have 20 to 30 students at a time, divided into several small groups that rotate around the garden for activities based on their grade level learning objectives and also for fun. A morning at the garden might include a scavenger hunt, harvesting, planting, nutrition ed, and always a tasting of the harvest. Activities are coordinated with their teachers to include state standards and support their particular classroom teaching at the time. Field trips are also an opportunity for the GAT students to show off what they have learned by being assistant garden leaders. The Family Nutrition Program provides nutrition education and wellness skills, as well as a tasting at the end of the field trip. A favorite is the kale salad, which we grow kale really well here, but it's not always a favorite with students. But we developed a healthy recipe that sort of copies the Chick-fil-A recipe for kale salad. And kids harvest the kale straight from the garden. They massage it into a tender salad, and almost all of them will give it a thumbs up after they give it a try. This has been so successful at the school gardens and at the field trips that it's now served weekly as a part of school meals. Next slide. Our school food hub is a part of this campus as well. We have a large processing kitchen. Part of it is in a cooler to keep produce fresh, and we also have a large walk-in freezer. Students and staff receive produce from farms each week and process and repackage it to go out to our 25 sites. On a typical week in the fall, we would receive about 1,300 pounds of lettuce, 600 pounds of kale, and the possibility of a harvest of the month, all from farms within 150 miles, most of them within our own county. The students learn how to weigh the produce, repackage it. They learn food safety skills that augment what they're learning from the Safe Staff book. And then this one boy on the right, Matthew, was our first GATS student, and he now has his driver's license and has assisted in driving the produce truck at times. Next. Our staffing here also comes from 3 sources: Food Nutrition Services, the Exceptional Student Education Department, and FNP. But for the people served by the Farm to School Hub, it feels like a very unified program. Most people wouldn't know who was employed by whom or be aware of the funding streams and their goals or their restrictions. We work well together because there's so much overlap in the people we serve. Over 50% of our district's students are eligible for free and reduced lunch, and this is the population that FNP serves. The GAT students at the Hub are most often qualified as well. These are the roles that we have at this point, coming up on our 7th year. From the Food Nutrition Services side, the Farm to School Coordinator, a warehouse operator, an administrative assistant. On the teaching side, 2 teachers and 3 job coaches. And then from the Family Nutrition Program, we have a full-time garden training coordinator and a kitchen training coordinator. Next slide. These are the quantitative outcomes of our program last year. Over 90,000 pounds of produce was grown on 11 local farms and processed by our students at the Farm to School Hub, which was over $131,000 remaining in our local economy. 4,000 pounds of produce we saw being grown at 15 school gardens as well as the Farm to School Hub. 330 students visited the Farm to School Hub for field trips before our shutdown in March. 24 students received Safe Staff training, and 5 are currently employed by Food Nutrition Services. This is not at all a charity to do this. They are fantastic employees when they graduate from the program, well-versed in food safety, ready to work, and really wonderful, wonderful people to work with. During the time that we were transitioning from offering farm to school to a few schools, to all of the schools in our county, the University of Florida's evaluation team did a plateway study that showed that those schools, the students in the schools with farm to school, consumed 37% more vegetables and 11% more fruit after the farm to school program began at their school, which was just great news for us to be able to see that that was the final outcome of the work that we were doing. Next slide. Okay, that's it from me. Thank you so much for including our program here. It's a pleasure and an honor to get to present. You can learn more at our website, and you're welcome to email me.
Great. Thank you so much for presenting and sharing your school successes in Florida. Our final speaker today comes from the Poe Center for Health Education, and her name is Remy Ham. Remy Ham is a lead garden specialist and educator at the Poe Center for Health Education in Raleigh, North Carolina. With a master's degree in landscape architecture and a bachelor's degree in urban and environmental planning, Remington's body of work is multifaceted. Her experience ranges from community development to designing edible teaching gardens and environmental curriculum for K-12 schools. Beyond designing learning landscapes, Remington's work has focused on reducing food insecurity through community gardens and breaking down perceived barriers of growing one's own food using digital platforms. Thank you so much for joining us today, Remy, and we look forward to hearing more about your work. I'll turn it over to you now.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. As mentioned, the Poe Center is located in Raleigh, North Carolina, and it is a nonprofit that focuses a lot holistically on health topics. And health topics that we cover includes nutrition, physical activity, to substance abuse, to also we have gardening education. And we've added a teaching kitchen as well on site. So it's a true holistic model in which we're doing a garden to table education. Next slide, please. So just showing you, this is a glimpse of the GrowWELL Garden. And this GrowWELL Garden is, the intent is for it to really be a learning lab that supports children being able to have tactile experiences with the seasonal plants that we grow in North Carolina. Our climate is really great. We have 3 major growing seasons. So pretty much all year round, students will come in. We have field trips that are here. We have summer camps that come, and even during our summer feeding, people are able to explore the garden. Now, keeping in mind, we really think about our audience in this space, and our audience and people that come here are children. So in that light, we really try to focus on keeping things bright and the indirect educational experiences that they can have, and they'll be shown in the next coming slides. So next slide, please. One such example of this is we really use art. I'm trying to put the STEAM and the A in that STEM model. And this is just a depiction of, working with a mural artist, like how can we really articulate the seasonality of our plant growth, and even as our educators are teaching, teaching children, okay, well, this is how a carrot grows, but being able to point to it, or also talking about the ecosystem as a whole, like the good bugs and the maybe bugs that are not so awesome in the garden. So it's a great way to continue conversations and for them to even have inquiries of their own beyond just looking at the plants that are in the garden. Next slide, please. So once again, so we have on site a park that's adjacent to the Poe Center, and this park, this is the one of the biggest nutritional themed park playgrounds that we have in our area, and throughout this, our entry signage, which we just installed, you'll see themes that are getting people to really think about movement and water intake, but we also have a community open garden. So the GrowWELL Garden is more so for smaller classes that are scheduled, but on the Playwell Park, we have a larger community open garden in which one of the signs you see here that says, please feel free to harvest when plants are ripe. There's many a times where there will be children who are playing, but then also meandering through the gardens and being able to pick strawberries or peas or anything that they see that's ready to go. And it's also when our staff is on site, we're able to have a lot of great and meaningful conversations with those who are park visitors. Next slide, please. So pre-COVID, we had a number of camps, and usually each summer we would have 2 camps scheduled for the whole week. And this was a free camp for those who are SNAP eligible. And there's an opportunity for children, once again, to learn about nutrition and their dental health, and also gardening, which is so fun because they were able to have experiences of learning how the different plants grow. It's really amazing to see how children are willing to try something, like if they see how it's actually coming, they have a little bit more buy-in. So we have the 2-bite rule that we try to encourage, just take 2 bites and see if you like it. But it's great for them to have scavenger hunts and feel and learn about even the pricklies that are on the cucumbers. It's really great for them to be able to ask questions and make the connections of what they eat and how it's grown. For this season, this summer, we've actually did a camp in a kit. So while our children were not able to come on site to the Poe Center and the GrowWELL Garden, our GrowWELL educators developed a garden in a kit in which they had a week of activities planned out, and also those activities were supplemented with videos as well, so that parents would be able to navigate the garden activities with all the materials provided, and parents would just come weekly and pick those materials up. And it was just a great way to try to navigate how do we provide this awesome educational experience while also, keeping in mind the state that we're in right now. So hoping to have the children back someday, but these are things that how we're navigating it is still using digital platforms and just creating a kit model to get that information out. Next slide, please. So in the garden, we try to get children to think about and be exposed to things that typically they would not have exposure to. Sage, that's not necessarily a popular herb, but the feel of it and having them rub it. We have fun seasonal scavenger hunts here. You have a little boy smelling like what rosemary smells like. Not only is it a fun plant to look at, but when you rub it, the fragrance is amazing. And also just showing the varying levels of plant growth and development. We all see our tomatoes in the grocery store, but like how does it actually form and how does it grow? So trying to create really we call them plant detectives. Everybody who comes into the GrowWELL Garden is a plant detective, and really trying to use all of our senses in exploring the different plants and their parts. Next slide, please. But being that we often have a field trip model, or we've had a field trip model, how do you work with that where like a child may help plant something, but then they wouldn't be able to see it grow because they're not coming back and returning. But we always try to find fun ways for them to be a part of the process. So, on the left side, you'll see the children, we talk about seeds and sustainability and how we plant seeds and best practices, and then going all the way to harvesting those carrot seeds that were planted on the left, children being able to harvest the carrots, then all the way to composting and how we can use best practices and think about sustainability and recycling in that way. So it's just an overall holistic experience that we try to give at different levels to any of our visitors. Next slide, please. So where does all the harvest go? We each year, last year alone, we harvested up to 600 pounds of vegetables, and on site, we've had summer feeding. So summer feeding is, which we have a relationship with the county that provide meals at our Playwell Park for children under the age of 18 who are eligible. And we always harvest and put out the vegetables for that week. And that's been a great opportunity to have conversation of like, oh, how did you grow this cucumber? Or what are your practices? Or even being able to invite people to the GrowWELL Garden to see the different levels of like how you can plant, that you don't need a large planter space to actually produce something that's fruiting very well. But even beyond that, thinking of like how can we make summer feeding more of an activity base, reducing any kind of stigma with that. And in the background, you kind of see children at a table. We're doing crafts and activities. We've often worked with local colleges so that their mascot can come, and trying to make it really a fun event, and the food obviously being a highlight, but trying to make it a holistic experience, and also being able to provide fruits and vegetables from the harvest that we have in our garden. Next slide, please. So we work with a lot of school and early education childcare centers, and the next slide will show you just a couple of examples of how we work. So this is a school, this is a environmental magnet school, and we had conversations with the principal. They were very interested in starting some kind of garden programming, but was a little bit nervous about, okay, I don't know if I'm really ready to start something outside. So this is one of the pilot projects that we did. Is indoors. We just started with one, and just to get them acquainted with it and have the children be able to taste and harvest with the help of the teacher. And my goodness, I mean, the smell of basil is so fragrant when the children are walking down the hallway. And this started with just one, but now they have 6 or 7 that are in the school. So it's just a great example of just maybe starting small to get people the confidence that they can do it, and it's being able to expand beyond that. So it has a great example of how culture shift can change and how children are just excited to eat kale and the robustness of the outcomes of the harvested plants and vegetables. Next slide, please. But realizing that, our team, there's only a couple of us on our team for GrowWELL, so there's limitations. We work with a lot of consulting with teachers and also our childhood educators, but how do we do a larger outreach? So we've created a number of publications ranging from your seasonal vegetables and plant guides, design guidelines for on-site, and even this year we've taken on hosting a conference, which is now a webinar that we'll have later in September called Dig In. And this conference allows a number of people that are interested, teachers, community members that are interested in school gardens, community gardens, urban agriculture, and early childhood education. And having all of them in the same room with experts in different sessions to be able to share their experiences and also to be able to learn. So we try to, beyond just the Poe Center, try to broaden our outreach through publications and also scheduled events. Next slide, please. This is an example of our child care partners that we work with. So there's a number, in North Carolina, child care centers are still open for operation. And that's been an interesting dynamic of working with child care partners, maintaining that physical distance. A number of things that we've done has been a drop-off and emailing and correspondence of like, what are your needs? And let me, scheduling sessions of like, okay, if you need help, we can schedule sessions for you just to help you navigate that, but trying to still keep our physical distance, but also provide their needs. And this is just a great example of repurposing things, repurposing space. So in the upper picture, you'll see sandboxes that previously, like I actually peeled off those, the tops of those sandboxes because they were not used for years. And repurposing that as an opportunity to use them as planters. So now it's very, very active space in which, it's the best actually sunlit space on the playground, but it's fun because children are playing on the playground, which is adjacent to these planters, but then they're also having an engagement with the plant. So it's natural and they're able to explore and see new things, and the teachers are, they're learning new things of Brussels sprouts, like, oh my goodness, I never knew how Brussels sprouts have grown. And that was like fun explorations that the children are able to have, being that it's so close and adjacent to their playground. Next slide, please. This is another child care center. We work in partnership also with local companies that will volunteer work and efforts. So this child care center, they said, Remy, we have a number of planters, really not sure what to do with it. Can you help us? And short answer was, yes, we can. So with this site, next slide, please. We worked with a team of the PNC Growing Upgrade. They helped us as well to install this. And it was just really amazing how with vibrant colors and a little bit of planning and paint, how spaces can be revitalized. It was an afternoon project in which we came in and worked with the child care director, but really came in and installed it pretty much during the kids' nap time. So they went for nap, and then when they came out, they had a beautiful garden. So that was an amazing experience to witness. Next slide, please. And this is just the aftermath of that. So just using, once again, vibrant colors, signage that would communicate well to our audience. So in this particular case, this is pre-readers, so that they have, the signs have pictures along with the words on them as well. Next slide, please. And the children have really engaged with this space and have taken great ownership in harvesting and watering, and it's a daily thing. They are daily out there in the garden, and it's been a great resource, not only to the children because they use it for snacks. I've seen so many pictures of just kids eating sweet peas, for their snack while they're playing, and it's such an amazing thing, and an amazing success story of like how this is being utilized, and it's just natural for them, and they're engaging with the plants and also willing to eat them. Next slide, please. The picture of a harvest. This little girl is so excited to use to eat the cucumber. I mean, I was almost jealous. I was like, my God, these cucumbers are amazing. So it was a great harvest that they acquired from this one site. Next slide, please. But not only that, I think this is the bigger picture. This is the bigger takeaway, is that it went to the family. So the children, they harvest and they pick and they eat, but then they have a farmer's market that they've created on site, so that when parents come to pick up their children, they are able to, like the kids are like, hey, let's go to the farmer's market. And parents are able to take what's harvested for that day home. So it's a whole model of the children being very vested and very happy and very excited to share with their parents what they have harvested and also taken such good care of. And next slide, please. But what I think the echoings of all of this guest speakers today is, here we are in a different time. So how do we navigate that? And we've been using a lot of digital platforms, not only for, as I mentioned, our early childhood educators. They, as we drop off, but we set up Zoom meetings to have conversations of like how to navigate and how to plant and best practices, but even setting up series for our audience. So we will do YouTube series that we will often promote and place on other platforms like Twitter and Facebook. But also we have every month we have a Poe Garden theme in which we go through a particular vegetable of the month, like how to grow, best practices in growing tomatoes and how to navigate all those things. So we've really trying to adapt, trying to make sure that our audience is well served. And luckily, with our child care centers being open, we're able to continue to service them. And we really look forward to having children back. But in the meantime, working with teachers and using our digital platforms to get information out there as well. If you have any questions about GrowWELL or the Poe Center and all the things that we do, please feel free to visit our website that's listed here on this page, or you can also feel free to contact me with the email provided. And that is what I have today. And thank you so much for the opportunity to present.
No, thank you so much, Remy, for sharing. And there was a note noting your photos were beautiful, and I agree. So we want to open it up at this time if you have any questions for speakers. So go ahead and type those in the Q&A. All of the speakers have provided their direct contact as well, so feel free to reach out to them if you have specific questions after the webinar. So as we pause right now to see if any questions come in, I'll just check in with you, Brittany, to see if you have any final announcements or updates you want to share before we end the call today.
Hey, this is Brittany. No final announcements, really. I just want to thank all of our speakers that we had today and for sharing all of your great work with Farm to School. As I mentioned earlier, we're really looking to enhance and increase SNAP-Ed Farm to School partnerships and really just Farm to activities in general, because, it's a top priority of USDA, and we're really excited to have so many people that are interested in Farm to activities and hope that you all would be able to take something away from today's webinar. So that's all I had.
Great, thank you. At this time, I don't see any questions coming in to the general chat or the Q&A. So I do encourage folks on the call to feel free to reach out directly to the speakers. We will share the recording and the slides of this webinar following the call, maybe by early next week. So you will have access to the resources and the contact information. So yeah, I agree. Thank you everyone for joining the call today and presenting, and hope everyone has a great rest of their day.